So before we dive in to Coursecheck, I just want to set the scene a little bit and tell you what I'm going to show you and what sort of how Coursecheck is different, particularly to generic survey tools like SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, and so on. Because frankly, that's a lot of the customers that we have. They tend to come to us from that starting point. They've been using some sort of off-the-shelf survey tool. And what they find is that it's a lot of work, either before the courses happen, they've got to prepare the feedback forms, they've got to generate QR codes, they've then got to get them out to the trainers, trainers got to be able to use them. So there's quite a lot of admin and so on before you get to the survey form. And then after the survey form is done and you've got feedback in, typically with generic tools, you download the data into Excel, you're going to manipulate it there, produce spreadsheets and so on and charts, and it can take a long time, frankly, to process that. And for large organizations, it can be very labor intensive. So those are aspects that we've addressed with Coursecheck. That's sort of one thing that makes Coursecheck very different. And I bracket that generally as operational efficiency. We just make it a slick process, and hopefully that'll come out when I do the demo. The second aspect is quality control. So, we give you out of the box the ability to see immediately, what does the feedback look like, both in the short term, how did today's courses run, anything we need to jump on straight away, things like negative feedback alerts delivered to your inbox, comment summary reports, lots of automation. But actually, what's the big picture? How are all my trainers performing? How are my courses comparing? That sort of analysis, that's all out of the box. So the idea is to get away from having to download all the data into Excel. And the third aspect is around marketing. So what's very unique about Coursecheck is that we give you the option to ask your learners, with their consent, to generate independent public reviews. And that's just a fantastic marketing asset these days. And the idea that you can then easily feed them into your website. Google loves reviews. And it's just a fantastic way to help you win new business. And the key thing is it's all done in one go. So we're collecting feedback once, detailed feedback for you as the training provider, but high-level feedback for marketing purposes. So that sort of sets the scene. So let me dive in now. So there's two parts I'm going to show you. First of all, the learner experience. So, what is it like for a learner leaving feedback on Coursecheck? And then the second part will go behind the scenes and I'll show you some of the outputs. And lastly, I say we'll look at some of that the marketing side. So here's the survey form. Survey forms all tend to look broadly similar. There's questions and you tick boxes and you fill in text and so on. What shall I point out here? Well, on the left-hand side, you can see we've got the course name, the course, the date, the instructor, and so on. So that's all built into this survey link. So that's something that the learners don't have to do. They can just get straight on with answering the questions. Now, before taking a step back, how did the learner get here in the first place? Well, again, we support lots of different ways to get the learners in front of the feedback form. They can do it on their mobiles. It'll look a bit different, but it's designed for any device. If you're running face-to-face training, then most likely you'd be putting up a Coursecheck QR code. People would point their phone at it and bring them straight here. Alternatively, if we were running an event virtually, like we are now, then I would be putting the link in the chat and saying to all the learners, right, we're almost at the end of the course. I'm going to put this link in the chat now. We're going to get the feedback in. It's really important to us, and do it that way. And you can, of course, email survey links out as well. But we definitely encourage getting feedback on the spot for end of course feedback because it's just more efficient. So you can have any number of templates for your courses. So, for this particular course, you might have a particular set of questions. And the idea is you have a question bank, question library, if you like. That's where all your questions are set up. And then from that, you can create any number of survey forms by simply picking from the library as to which questions you want to use. And in that way, you can have the same questions appearing on lots of different feedback forms and still are able to analyze the data all together. Now, you can see there's some structure here. We've got summary questions. We've got questions about the instructor, about the course, the venue, and so on. An example of Coursecheck being dynamic is that if we were running this as a virtual event, then this section about the venue just simply wouldn't appear. So, it's very dynamic depending on the actual event and how you've set it up. We support feedback in different languages. So for any of you who are running courses in other territories and you want to collect feedback in French, Dutch, German, or Far Eastern languages, you can absolutely do that. You just put in translations for your questions, and Coursecheck will then present the entire form that you're looking at here in that language. So let's move on. So the question that then we go on to is about you. So you filled in the survey form. Again, this is configurable. You might want to capture other information about the learner at this point or less than we've got here. There is an option for them to remain anonymous. And the third part is the marketing side. So we'd like to create this public review from your feedback. And this is what we're going to show basically with their consent, just my first name and initial, the comments I made, and job done. Okay. And then they also get the option to share their feedback on social media if they want to. So that's really it from the learner perspective. And I'm going to be going through this quite quickly. So we've only got a lot of time. So let's move on now to the behind the scenes part. So this is where you would be logging in now and seeing what does all that feedback look like. Lots of different things over here on the left-hand side. I'm just going to focus on a couple. So the end of course reporting, I'm going to focus on particularly, I will touch on follow-up feedback, but mainly I'm going to talk about end of course feedback. So here we've got detailed feedback, which is the here and now. Is there anything we need to react to straight away? We've got the analysis, which is that big picture and trends. And then we've got AI generated reports, which I will also touch on. And that's the idea of being able to analyze all the comments that you get from your learners. So let's start off with the detailed feedback. And as I say, it might typically be like this week or last week. I've just got a selection here of a few events, 4 events here. And you can see a little sad face here indicating that somebody didn't like something. We don't know what or who yet, but I can easily drill down onto that and see. And now we get the learner comments from this event. And underneath that, we see their scores, color-coded scores. And immediately I can see here it's Michael that didn't like something. Don't quite know what yet, although the scores look, fairly okay, 5s and 4s. Go down one stage further, and now immediately we can see it's that pre-course information that Michael scored a 2 on. So it's a good example of sort of the devil's in the detail. You wouldn't necessarily know that by looking at the high-level scores, but there's something there. And at this point, we might want to say, well, let's go and look at that question more widely and see whether or not Michael's a lone voice here, or perhaps there are other people who feeling the same. And if so, well, perhaps we should do something about that. And this is also automated. So as I said, you can have emails popping up in your inbox with, here are the comments from yesterday's training. Here's any negative feedback alerts, and you can react to things that way. And you click on a link in the email, it will bring you back in here. This is also where you can respond to feedback. So if these comments are public, then it's a nice way to be able to show that you're reading the comments, even if it's just to thank the learners for giving you some constructive feedback and taking the time to do so. If this was like a closed event for one particular client, then we might want to share this feedback more widely. And that's very easy. With a single click, we can produce a shareable report about that event. Again, it's configurable, but you can see you've got some sort of nice sort of charts here at the top, donuts, some graphical indications about the different questions that you've got on the form. Don't necessarily have to include all of them, comments, and summary by learner. And if you see this link at the top here, this is something I could share in the chat with you now. I could pop it on an email and that way get it out. If this was for a particular client, then this is a very nice way to just get the feedback out to the client and say, here's the feedback from yesterday's training or even today's training. So that's the detailed feedback. If we now go on to the analysis, the high level feedback, sorry, not the high level, but the longer term, you can see we've got different tabs along the top here. So we can look at our feedback by course or by trainer. We support Net Promoter Score if any of you use that, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us, and we can track our NPS there. We've also got other ways, so by client, and you can also define your own ways that you want to analyze the feedback. So you might have business area or region or any other ways you want to tag your feedback, if you like, and then immediately you'd be able to analyze your feedback in that way. Let's just pick an example of trainers. So here we are looking at our analysis by trainer. You can see a long list here of all of our instructors. We can sort this, how much feedback they've collected, what their average ratings were, top to bottom or bottom to top. And let's just pick on one of these trainers here. I'm going to pick on Albert, see what Albert's been doing, go down another level of detail. Now we can see the different courses that Albert delivers. You know, he may deliver a number of different courses. And again, this might just show up in this case that, you know, this one course, a little bit of red there, feedback not quite so good as some of the others. Why is that? Well, there may be good reasons for it, but it just gives us this sort of easy visibility as to, you know, what's going on and whether there's anything we need to explore further. And so that's the high level feedback. If we now go and look at the AI generated reports, which is something we've only released recently, and, you know, frankly, a year ago, this wouldn't have been really possible. Now, it's easy with software and databases to analyze numbers and scores, but when we come to text, it's a different matter. And text is so often where the real treasure is in learner feedback. So the idea is you can create reports here within Coursecheck. We're using ChatGPT to actually do it. But the point is then the feedback comes back in, the report comes back in, and let's just have a look at a couple of examples of this. So here's one just on negative feedback. And I don't know if, I'm guessing many of you may have played around with ChatGPT. And the idea is that you write a set of instructions to ChatGPT as to what do you want it to do. And we've done some of that in the background. So we've got different templates, for example. This is one on particular focus on negative feedback. You might have one that's a particular focus on marketing or on a particular course. And the idea is you pick whatever is the appropriate template. You would then pick, you know, the relevant filters here. So if I was looking at for a particular instructor, I could pick that person there. But let's just have a look at this one. So this is on negative feedback. I'm focusing it on the general comments that we've got on our survey form, but if we've got other text-based questions, then we might want to focus our report there. And what ChatGPT does then is it'll produce a report. I'm just going to whiz to the bottom of it to show you. So this report here is based on almost 10,000 words collected from, you know, 240 or so responses from learners, and this is the report that it produced. And you know, you can get an idea just by sort of skimming it. You know, these are the specifically negative things that we've asked ChatGPT to focus on. And having got that, then it's very easy to share it. Again, I could easily copy a link to this report, share it in email. I could put it in a chat or send it out in other ways. And in that way, you know, get that information being looked at by others. Just one other example I'll use, perhaps as an analysis by trainer. So here we've picked one. We've picked that particular trainer I used earlier, Albert, and said, look, I want to look at all the comments about courses delivered by Albert over the last year. You know, what are there any recurring themes? And this is what it produced. Again, going to the bottom, this one was produced on just over 8,000 words. And it's a really nice way of just summarizing a lot of comments that just would not be practical in any other way. And even better, for those of you who train in other territories, of course, it can read other languages. So if you've got comments in other languages, that is not a problem either. It can simply read them in that language and turn them into English in your report. So that's all I'm going to say about the analytics, the marketing, the behind the scenes aspect of Coursecheck, the quality control. Lastly, I just want to move on to the marketing side. So as you saw earlier, if I'm leaving feedback about a course, I'm given the option to create a public review from it. And this is an example of one of our customers, a company called Training the Street. They're in New York. They run a lot of training for big financial institutions. This is their homepage. And if I go down a little bit, you can see what they've done here. They've embedded the Coursecheck widget into their homepage, and they've got a real-time feed of comments. This is just from yesterday coming through onto their website. So that's sort of low-hanging fruit. That's a really nice thing to do. In addition to that, you would have on your website on Coursecheck, you'd have a public area, so your public profile. This is an example of another customer called Academy Class. So this is public pages now. This is where they would set out their stall. This is all content that they have uploaded into Coursecheck. This is where the reviews sit. You can see reviews here from a couple of days ago. And for each of the courses that they run, they will also have a course outline page, something like this. And again, this is content that's very easy for you to maintain. We don't publish dates here. There's no pricing. So the idea is it shouldn't be something that you have to sort of update on a very regular basis, but just occasionally. So that's your public area. And then Google loves reviews. So, here's a search on a company called Albacare, again, another customer of ours. As you'd expect, the first hit here is to their own website, but closely followed down here by a link to all their reviews on Coursecheck. And Google puts in these hugely valuable Google stars. That's organic. There's no money changes hands for that. It just happens. And, people clicking on those links are 3 times more likely actually to be seriously interested in buying a product or service from an organization with Google stars. So it's a real standout feature. And over here on the right, you can see their Google business profile. And again, this just happens automatically. Reviews from the web, and you can see that Google has inserted this, reviews from the web, Coursecheck, 1,400 reviews. So lots of ways that, things happen in the background. But in addition to that, of course, you can do a lot proactively with your independent reviews. You can market the hell out of them. This is another example from Training the Street. They did a post recently, which I've just picked out as an example. And the nice thing about this is you can cherry pick here. So they've picked out a really nice quote from a particular learner. And the point is they've referenced where it came from. And that's the crucial thing, that they put in a link here so you can see all of them. So yes, this is one of the best, but this is not a case of just, well, is it genuine? Did they make it up? You can click through and see where they came from. And that's what gives it the authenticity. So, we see customers putting it in their email footers. You can talk about it in sales presentations. The fact that you take feedback seriously is a great way to evidence the quality of your services. So just to go back to where we started then, to wrap up before we go over to Q&A, what's special about Coursecheck? Firstly, operational efficiency. We make it really easy for you to create your events. You can create events en masse. Coursecheck will generate survey links and QR codes. They can be emailed automatically out to your instructors. It's something else that often takes admin time. So Coursecheck will send out an email to instructors saying, here's what you've got coming up next week. Here are your QR codes. Here are your survey links. You're good to go. And then automation afterwards, instant visibility, negative feedback alerts, easy to see what that feedback looks like, easy to share it with other stakeholders, with clients, and so on. And then that third aspect we just covered at the end, the marketing, without any extra effort, there's a potential is there for you to get a public review from every single person you train. And, that is in the current world, marketing goal, just being able to evidence that and help you win new business.